I'm scared of my werewolf son. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I am an old woman who has spent most of her life caring for an ungrateful son. Sometime in his later 30s, he somehow became a werewolf. He told me that one of his friends bit him, but I know that was a lie. Who would be friends with my son? He's going to be 60 next year, but he's still living at home. And he treats me worse every year. He treats me worse every day. My friends complained when their children put them into old age homes, but my son can't afford to do that. He doesn't work because he spends his days sleeping and his nights out killing things. He really is a werewolf, you know. I didn't mean that in some coded way. I literally was trying to tell you that my son becomes this other creature when the moon is full, and as time has gone on, he changes back less each time. Oh, sure, he still looks human when he changes back, but I mean that his heart stops turning human again each morning. It gets a little darker and a little meaner each day, and it's been years since I've had a truly human conversation with my own son who lives with me. All he cares about is meat. He likes red meat best, but pork is fine with him, chicken, squirrel, anything, you name it. He only cares that it used to have a brain when it was alive. He makes fun of me for being a vegetarian. He insults me brutally and questions not only my intelligence, but the intelligence of all vegetarians. On some days, all women on others. Sometimes it's all mothers. He likes to use his anger at me as an excuse to be furious at entire classes of people all at once. If he put all that energy to some constructive purpose, he'd have become a great man by now. Instead, I don't think my son is really even any kind of man at all anymore. He's a beast. He's an animal. He kills and he maims and he hurts. He gives me all these reasons why he eats meat, but I know it's really that he enjoys hunting and killing more than he enjoys the meat. Hunting can be a noble profession. It can be a way for a man to feed his family. There's nothing noble about the way my son hunts. There's nothing noble about anything he does anymore, and it's clear that I was a failure as a mother. My son became a werewolf during the brief period when he had his own apartment and job. My husband was still alive back then, and we enjoyed finally having the house to ourselves. But then my husband passed on, and when my son moved back in, I thought it was to help me mourn. No, it was because he was now this nasty thing, and he could no longer hold that job down which paid his rent. It's almost 18 years later now, and I'm a prisoner in my own home to a literal monster. I feel that when he is the wolf, he is too large to be in my house, but he doesn't care, and both his bed and the living room couch are broken from his incredible weight. He just doesn't care. He just sits on the broken furniture anyway. People assume that he goes out all night when he becomes the werewolf, and it's true that he used to at first, but now he's so lazy that he usually comes back within an hour and passes out somewhere that will be in my way. He stinks to high heaven, as one might expect a bear-sized animal to do. And don't think it's like living with a trained animal either. He does what he wants, and if I annoy him, he bluff charges me and frightens me half to death. That's funny to him. He laughs, while I clutch my heart. It's better to lock my door and hide in the dark in my room when he's the werewolf. Come to think of it, these days he really isn't much better when he's human. Not any longer anyway. He used to at least be nice when we would have our breakfasts and lunches together. At least during those times he used to still sound like my son. Now when he changes back he looks like an older version of my son, that's true, but he lacks the kindness that my boy always used to show to me. I never used to doubt that he loved me, but this version of him barely seems to even recognize me. I wonder if being the werewolf caused him to lose his human soul. It certainly feels that way to me. He lacks any kind of empathy at all. When I first noticed how incredibly strong and violent he had become, I wasn't immediately alarmed by it. What happened was that a fool burglar tried to pick his way into the back of our house while we were both here. Obviously, he wasn't very good at his craft, and my son intercepted him before he could get inside. Then, while I watched, my son lifted the burglar up over his head and hurled him with both arms into a row of garbage cans. It wasn't a very smart thing to do, as it set all the dogs in the neighborhood off barking and allowed the burglar to get away. The burglar later sued me for his injuries, and I'm still paying them off. We should have let him break in. It would have cost me less, and it would have been over a lot quicker. But my point was that my son has become incredibly strong since this werewolf change in him. Where do you think he got this done to him? How do you turn a nice boy into a mean, hairy monster of a man? Or maybe I should be asking if this can be undone. Is there a way for me to get my son back? I would like to look into his eyes and sense his soul looking back at me at least one more time before I go to rejoin my husband. Do any of you out there know how I can bring my son back? Story number 2. Our daughter is a werewolf. My first wife got bitten by a werewolf when she was carrying our daughter. She passed away during childbirth, and now my second wife Mabel and I have to deal with my adult werewolf daughter. Donna was a difficult child to raise. She didn't begin transforming until she was late into her puberty, but she had been an angry girl since day one. It's a miracle Mabel married me. She might have been better keeping her job and staying single, waiting for an easier man to live with. Donna made our every day and night a hard one. It's not that she's a bad girl. She's just not all human. She can't help it. Violence is in her nature. She isn't really unintelligent. She's just more instinctual than intellectual. I'd say that her intelligence is equal to mine, but she has smarts when it comes to killing and destroying life. She's an expert at ruining happiness. But that doesn't make her bad, and it doesn't make me love her any less. It's just that the devil is her father just as much as I am. It's as unnatural for her to be kind and nurturing as it would be for any other cursed demonic being. Bringing misery into the lives of those around her is my Donna's way of living her best life. Of course, this has created decades of unnecessary hardship for me and Mabel, who is a saint that just hasn't been issued her halo yet. That is the most patient woman still alive on planet Earth. They unfortunately broke the mold after Mabel. Both of us are scarred up from surprise attacks which happened in the earlier years, when we were afraid to put Donna out at night. We had tried putting her in a cage, but she would tear through metal in order to get out, and then she would try to kill either me or my wife. I spent a fortune building a backyard enclosure for her that I was told was strong enough to hold a family of adult chimpanzees. That was where we would put her out into on nights with any kind of moon at all. It didn't need to be full for Donna to transform. So this enclosure solved the problem of what to do about her transformations for over a year, until we discovered that she had been digging a tunnel under the fence on the far side while we were sleeping. She had been getting out at night, then sneaking back in each morning, which I say demonstrates an intelligence level equal to any human, and superior to many. At least she possesses a high level of sneakiness and cunning. It was a couple of weeks of people's pets disappearing that started to seep into my subconscious, slowly rising to the surface. One morning I was having a dream about my daughter doing terrible things to the neighbor's cat. When I woke up and ran outside to inspect Donna's cage, I already figured it out. She had been getting out and taking the neighbor's pets. I knew it was true before I was able to get out there and confirm. There was indeed a dirt tunnel dug under the cage fence in the back, hidden behind some bushes. Donna was already back before I spotted the hole, so I didn't have to go looking for her. I tossed some stones into the hole to block it up temporarily. Then I let her out of the cage. Donna was free during the day, obviously, It would be unethical to lock her up when she was human. I was talking for a while to people at an animal preserve, trying to make arrangements to house Donna after my wife and I are gone. But talks broke down. Rather than taking the chance to be able to prove werewolfism is real, and study an actual werewolf in real life, they have decided it's too controversial to be involved with. They're afraid they'll have some creepy DA trying to make a name for themselves, charging them with kidnapping and illegal imprisonment if they try to house my daughter. And if she hurts someone while in werewolf form, then that could also prove disastrous and terminate their business permanently. So my wife and I still have more issues to work out because our daughter is a werewolf. Story number 3. She is a werewolf. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I've never been a religious man, but I've always believed in God. Or at least I thought I did. But now I'm not so sure. The first time I saw her change, I thought I was going mad. The full moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the quiet suburban street. My daughter, my sweet Emily, was standing in the middle of the lawn, her body convulsing, her face contorted in a silent scream. I watched in horror as her bones cracked and shifted, her skin stretching and sprouting thick dark hair. Her once delicate hands transformed into menacing claws, her teeth elongating into sharp, deadly fangs. A guttural growl tore from her throat, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. It was a sound that belonged to the wild, to the untamed wilderness, not to my gentle, bookish daughter. I wanted to run, to hide from this monstrous apparition, but my feet were rooted to the spot, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. As the transformation completed, a towering wolf stood where my daughter had been, its eyes glowing with an unnatural yellow light. It was a creature of nightmares, a beast of legend, and yet I recognized the familiar tilt of its head, the gentle curve of its snout. It was Emily, my Emily, trapped inside a monstrous form. Tears welled up in my eyes as I watched her bound into the night, her powerful strides carrying her into the darkness. My heart ached with a mix of fear and sorrow. Fear for the danger she posed to herself and others, and sorrow for the loss of the daughter I thought I knew. The ensuing days were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. I scoured the internet for information on werewolves, desperate for a way to help my daughter, to bring her back from the brink of this monstrous transformation. I learned of ancient curses and blood rituals, of silver bullets and wolfsbane, but none of it offered any real hope. I knew then that I would have to face the truth, that my daughter was a werewolf, and there was no way to change that. All I could do was try to help her control her transformation, and protect her from the dangers that came with it. I learned of ancient curses and blood rituals, of silver bullets and wolfsbane, but none of it offered any real hope. Emily returned home a few days later, her human form restored, but her eyes still held a flicker of that wild, feral light. She was quiet, withdrawn, her usual cheerfulness replaced by a haunting sadness. I tried to talk to her, to understand what had happened, but she refused to speak of it. I knew she was afraid just as I was afraid. I knew she hated what she was becoming, just as I hated the thought of losing her. But I also knew that I couldn't give up on her. She was my daughter, and I loved her more than anything in the world. I knew then that I would never give up on Emily. I would fight for her, for the girl trapped inside the beast, for the daughter I loved more than life itself. Together we would face this curse, this monstrous transformation, and together we would find a way through the darkness. One night, after a particularly harrowing transformation, I found Emily curled up on a living room couch, her eyes red from crying. I sat beside her, gently stroking her hair, my heart aching for her pain. "I'm scared, Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't want to be this thing." I pulled her into my arms, holding her tight, my own tears mingling with hers. "I know, sweetheart," I murmured. We sat there for a long time, holding each other, finding solace in the shared silence. I didn't have any answers, any solutions, but I had love, an unyielding love for my daughter no matter what form she took. "We'll get through this together, Emily," I promised. "I'll never give up on you." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Dad," she said. "I love you." I hugged her even tighter. "I love you too, sweetheart." In the days and weeks that followed, I did everything I could to help Emily. I researched werewolves tirelessly, seeking a cure, or at least a way to control her transformations. I reached out to other werewolf families, seeking support and advice. And most importantly, I listened to Emily, offering her my love and support unconditionally. I talked to Emily about her curse, and she agreed to let me help her. We started researching werewolf lore together, and we began to develop a plan for how she could manage her transformations. We learned that there were certain herbs and rituals that could help ease the pain and confusion of the transformation, and we discovered that there were certain triggers that could cause it to happen prematurely. With careful planning and preparation, Emily has become able to learn to control her transformation. She is still a werewolf, but she's no longer a danger to herself or others. She can transform almost at will, and she can return to her human form almost as easily. I'm so proud of my daughter for her strength and courage. She'd been dealt a difficult hand in life, but she's refused to let it define her and keep her down. She's still the same sweet, gentle girl I've always known, even when she's in her wolf form. Emily herself is determined to find a way to control her curse for good. She's studied everything she can find on werewolves and magic. She practiced meditation and breathing exercises to help her control her emotions and her impulses. And she's gradually began to learn how to shift at will, rather than being at the mercy of the full moon. It hasn't been easy, and there have been setbacks along the way. Today, Emily is a thriving young woman. She has learned to embrace her werewolf side, using her strength and her power to help others. She is a role model for other werewolves, showing them that it is possible to live a good and productive life. Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. A lot of the stories we run on this channel are supposed to be true, but it's not like I have budget or time to look into any of the claims made. Someone who made her living looking into dogman claims, though, was the late great Linda Godfrey. If you like the stories on this show, then you should check out this incredible audiobook from Linda called Real Wolfmen, True Encounters in Modern America. Linda goes back to the 1930s and tells a number of the better researched dogman and werewolf stories of the 20th and 21st centuries. It's a great overview of the subject matter, whether you're new to it, or even if you think you know all the stories. It's available in audiobook, audio CD, paperback, or Kindle forms at the address in the description for this video. The audiobook is over 8 hours, and it's probably the best deal there. Plus, if you use the link in the description, supposedly you're helping us out here in some way that I'm still learning about. And now here's your old pal Bigfoot with an important message about today's executive producer. Stacy Miller, Ms. All Business. She saves us from the palpitations and the dizziness. Please join me in thanking Stacy Miller, Ms. All Business, for making this episode possible. Stacy is a member of our PayPal subscribers club, which means she gets to see our weekly secret uncensored werewolf and dogman stories. Here to explain the cool perks you can get for helping us stay online is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank. Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.